This season so far, there have been tons of players having very impressive years, but there's also been a couple of guys that I've been pretty disappointed with, and I really expected a lot more, and that's going to be the subject of today's video. I'm going to be talking about 5 players who have been disappointing so far throughout the first quarter of the NHL season. Starting off with James Neal of the Calgary Flames. Now this offseason when they signed him to that big contract, I liked the move, but I didn't really like the term and the money, because if he keeps playing the way he is throughout the first half or the first quarter of this season, and that translates into the next couple of years, this could look like one of the worst contracts in the NHL. But James Neal is a very streaky player, and he definitely could turn it on, have a really good run, and still reach 20 goals this season. But at this point, it's really not looking like it. In 28 games, he has 3 goals and 3 assists for just 6 points. Luckily, though, that isn't really tarnishing the Calgary Flames because pretty much everyone else on the team is having a fantastic year. Last year with Vegas, 71 games played, 25 goals and 19 assists for 44 points. He was an all-star last year. Just a great year. He got off to that really hot start, then was injured, but still played very well for Vegas, and he hasn't really been able to translate that over to Calgary, and I think that's because he's not really playing with guys that suit him. He's playing on their third line right now, I believe, and when he signed this deal, I kind of thought he would be a guy who would play with Monahan and Gaudreau. I thought it would be between him and Lindholm, and then if James Neal was not to play on that top line, I think he would play with Backlund and Tkachuk on that second line, but no, that's not the case. He's actually down on the third line. I think they need to try something to get him going. Obviously, if it's not broke, don't fix it. The team is playing very, very well. But if you were to throw him on that top power play unit, maybe on the point, and just to get some ice time with guys like Gaudreau and Monahan, I think it would really benefit James Neal. But luckily for them, he hasn't been tarnishing the team, but he definitely isn't living up to the contract that he got this summer. Next up on the list, you guys might be surprised this one, I have Ilya Kovalchuk, another guy who signed a huge contract this summer. Last year in the KHL, 53 games played, 31 goals, 32 assists for 63 points. I believe he led the league in scoring. Obviously, it is only the KHL, a much different league than the NHL. And this year, 25 games, 5 goals, 9 assists, 14 points. But that minus 13 really jumps out to me. And obviously, Kovalchuk spent some time on the fourth line. He was benched in the third period, only played around 8 minutes in one game. And I really just think this hasn't worked out for the LA Kings or Ilya Kovalchuk. And I really do feel bad for Kovalchuk because he came to the NHL wanting to win a Stanley Cup. He went to LA because he thought he would have a good shot to make a good playoff run, but it looks like they're going to be at the bottom of the league if they keep playing the way they are. And for Kovalchuk and for the LA Kings, that sucks because now you're kind of stuck with this contract, because I'm really not sure anyone is going to want to trade for Ilya Kovalchuk from what he's shown so far. Decent numbers with 14 points in 25 games, but definitely not what the LA Kings expected. They expected to be winning, and they expected Kovalchuk to be a big part of that. He had a decent start to the year, but I really just think things have really started to fall apart for both parties involved. And obviously Ilya Kovalchuk just been injured. I believe he's out 4 to 6 weeks. A huge blow to Kovalchuk and the LA Kings, and I just think this hasn't worked out. So not really numbers-wise a disappointing year, but just all the circumstances at hand in Los Angeles for Ilya Kovalchuk, I think just makes it a disappointing year. And if he could go back, I think he probably would have tried to sign a contract somewhere else. Next up is another one some of you guys might be surprised with, and that's Nolan Patrick of the Philadelphia Flyers. Last year, the second overall draft pick behind Nico Hischier, 73 games played in his rookie season, 13 goals and 17 assists for 30 points. And a lot of people pretty much right up until the draft had this guy pegged to go number 1 overall before the Devils actually decided to go with Nico number 1. And Nolan Patrick, I really expected him to have a really good step forward this season and definitely produce a lot more points. I mean, 30 in 73 games isn't bad for your rookie season, but as a guy who was kind of pegged to go number 1 the whole year, fell to you at number 2, you probably would expect a little bit more from him. And so far this season, in 22 games played, he has 5 goals and 4 assists for 9 points, pretty much on pace for around the same point total as last year. And that's a bad sign for the Philadelphia Flyers, a team that has been struggling this year, and you definitely want a guy who you drafted to be a huge part of your franchise moving forward to produce a little bit more points than he has. Obviously, I think he's a pretty responsible defensive player, but for a number 2 overall draft pick, you definitely would want him to produce a lot more points. And with the Flyers struggling and Nolan Patrick kind of not having a good year as well, it's just not looking good over there for Nolan Patrick. Hopefully, he doesn't turn into a bust. I definitely wouldn't say that just yet. Obviously, it is way too early, and he could get it going for sure, but it's been a pretty slow start to the year for Nolan Patrick and the Philadelphia Flyers in general, and they definitely want to see more from him as the season moves on. Next up is Pittsburgh Penguins goaltender Matt Murray. The 24-year-old had a pretty strong season last year. He did look shaky from time to time, but definitely Pittsburgh was still really confident with him in goal. 49 games played, 27 wins, 16 losses, and 3 overtime losses, a 2.92 goals against, and a .907 save percentage. And after Matt Murray won those 2 Stanley Cups, and obviously Vegas took Fleury away from the Pittsburgh Penguins, they decided to keep Matt Murray. Obviously, the younger goaltender had a really good run with them early on in his career. A pretty stupid decision if they weren't going to protect Matt Murray, so I still think they did make the right decision there. The people saying they should have protected Fleury over him, I definitely don't agree with that because Matt Murray is still only 24 years old, but this year in 11 games he only has 4 wins and he has 5 losses and 1 overtime loss, a 4.08 goals against and a .877 save percentage. And early on in the season he was a big part of why the Pittsburgh Penguins were struggling. Their goaltending has been inconsistent this year. They've been trying Matt Murray. Obviously he's injured right now, which does suck for the Penguins. That's another reason why he's having a pretty disappointing year, the injury. And then they've been trying D. Smith, Tristan Jarry. Pittsburgh really off to a slow start, but this is something we have seen with them over the past couple of years, and obviously we know how that ended up. But this year it feels a little bit different. It feels like they're not really going to get it going, and obviously they do need the goaltending. Any team that wants to be successful in the NHL needs to have confidence in their goaltender, and I definitely think Matt Murray can still bounce back, but it has been a very slow start to the season for him, and he's been pretty disappointing so far. And the last player we're going to talk about in today's video is Jesse Pulkkinen of the Edmonton Oilers, taken 4th overall by the Oilers, and I'm pretty sure Columbus is very happy that they decided to go with Pierre-Luc Dubois 3rd overall and pass up on Pulkkinen because he's been rather disappointing so far to start his career, but I don't really think it's all his fault, as Edmonton definitely has a history of not being able to develop young talent into stars. Obviously McDavid is an exception to that. I think no matter where he played, he was going to produce and become an absolute superstar. Last year, Jesse Pulkkinen in 65 games had 12 goals and 8 assists for just 20 points. Not too bad, but they definitely wanted more from him. And this year, they definitely thought he was going to take a step forward and really be a big offensive contributor to this team. But in just 17 games, he only has 2 goals and 0 assists for 2 points. Spent a little bit of time in the American Hockey League. I believe he's back up in the NHL now. I don't think Ken Hitchcock is a good coach to really develop Jesse Pulkkinen as well. And, you know, right now it's kind of looking like maybe the Edmonton Oilers should look to move him and just try to move on and get some pieces back for Jesse Pulkkinen, because I don't think him and Edmonton are going to work out. I don't really know why they haven't tried to play him with Connor McDavid and really put him on a stacked line just to try to get him going a little bit, or maybe even play him on the number 1 power play unit with McDavid to try to get him going. But it just seems like the Edmonton Oilers really don't care, and they're being a little bit too patient with Jesse Pulkkinen, and I think that definitely has put a damper on him. I don't think they've been showing the confidence in him that you would like to see a team put confidence in their young player who they drafted high, who they expected to be a big part of their franchise. But so far, just his career overall has been pretty disappointing so far, but this season, definitely 17 games played, just 2 points, both of those being goals. Not a very good start for Jesse Pulkkinen. So that is going to wrap up this video. I really hope you guys did enjoy. Make sure to let me know down in the comment section some players that you've been disappointed with while watching so far this season. I'm not hating on any of these players. I really do hope they bounce back and have a strong rest of the season. But as of right now, they've been pretty disappointing. So with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please make sure to drop a like on it and subscribe to the channel for daily NHL content. And I will see you guys all in the next video.